Good morning from Vietnam, Duncan. Thank you so much for agreeing to see me and to share your story to our audience at the Inside Sharing Show. And we really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Duncan, I really admire you and the works that you do, and I would like to congratulate you on the new book that you're writing. That you wrote and published in December of 2021, right? So big congratulations for that. Today we're gonna explore your journey and why and what made you write the book for our audience. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So look forward to talking about it. So,
Sure, sure. And in our Vietnamese culture, it will be a very respectful way for us to ask you if you can do the introduction of who you are and the work that you've been doing. Can you share that for our audience, please?
yeah, so I'm a retired senior executive. So my last role was running VMware, which is a software company for the last 5.5 years. And, I had a team of 3,500 spread across 30 countries.
Mm,
So, a real privilege actually that the company ran three regions around the world, one for Europe, one for Asia, and one for the US.
mm,
And being part of, I guess, that executive team through a significant transformation of a company. We more than doubled the revenue over that time. Really, fantastic experience. But I have a long, 35 years in IT. So, done lots of different roles, worked for Lotus Development when it existed, and worked for IBM as well
mm.
as running VMware.
Wow. Well, when I was young, Duncan, I always dreamed one day when I grow up, I'd be an astronaut. Okay. Indeed, it's never happened. So when you were young, did you have a dream that one day you're gonna, when you grow up, you're gonna start in career like you're having? Do you have that any dream like that?
Um, Actually, probably part of the change for me came after I started working.
Oh.
So, I mean, I did reasonably well at school and was good at maths, so I went on and did electrical engineering
Mm,
and realised very quickly I wasn't very good at engineering. But and I went in and joined IBM as a mainframe engineer
mm,
after qualifying from university. And what I worked out, probably about years two or year three, that what I really enjoyed was leading people
mm.
and, and that challenge. So, and I got that opportunity as my first people management role at 24.
Wow.
And I had a team of 27 engineers working for me, and I was the youngest in the team.
Uh,
So, which was an experience in itself. I was actually the lowest paid and the youngest,
but leading the team.
but leading the team.
Uh-huh.
So, well, managers didn't get overtime, so it was. But that sort of experience around working with people and helping them do their best, I enjoyed, and then I continued to build on that through different roles over time. And I was pretty fortunate through my career. I've had good mentors.
Mm,
And there's no connection between being a mainframe engineer and leading a software company.
mm,
It's actually, it occurs over time
mm.
through opportunities and trusting people along the way who say, well, yes, I think you'd be good at this, and, stretching yourself and learning.
Mm.
So, lots of different roles in between.
And then for my background of a mainframe engineer and moving to a people leader, there's a lot of skills will be lack in between, right? And then from what you design and you want to do versus what you have to do back then, you get to do back then, there's a lot of gaps in between. How did you fill the gap besides the mentoring?
I think one of the things I was fortunate is I joined IBM at a time where it invested heavily in people managers.
Mm.
So a couple of things. One is, when you first became a people manager, they sent you on a 3-week course
Mm.
offsite
Wow.
just to teach you people management,
Wow.
which no company does anymore. Um, and then the other couple of the interesting things that existed at the time, they ran an employee opinion survey
Mm.
every year And so your team would rate how good a job you do as a manager. And those statistics that came out of that survey every year, you not only got a score, but you then got a ranking or around where you existed in all 30,000 managers in IBM.
Wow.
So you got some very strong feedback, and they were serious. If you didn't have the right skills and didn't deliver well enough around managing people, they took you out of people management roles. So I was reasonably fortunate. I had that probably for the first 8 years or 9 years of my people management career. I had this constant feedback mechanism. And actually one of the stories, and we'll talk later, that I tell in the book, I was also fortunate. I had a peer, a guy by the name of Brian Truval, who was also a people manager like me, and he was a first line manager. And so Brian would come out of those opinion surveys and he would get 100% of his team thought he did a good job as a manager. 100%, 3 years in a row. The best I ever did was 94. I could never get it to 100. And I asked Brian one day and he said, it's actually pretty simple. He said, at the end of the day, when you've got a team of 25, you can't do their job for them. Your job is to help them achieve their best. And if they achieve their best, they'll be happy, you'll be happy, and you'll have the best performing team. So that's sort of, having peers around you to learn from. Now, Brian, by the way, unfortunately is not with us anymore, but also led the Australian kayak team to 3 Olympics. Wow. So he had some pretty good coaching skills.
Yep.
And interesting, he had almost no business skills. He couldn't type, he couldn't use a spreadsheet.
Really?
But what he had was exceptional people skills. So I think I was extremely fortunate, both around the rigor IBM put in early and then some peers around me and then mentors along the way that give you feedback that sort of help shape the way I managed people. And that, I use the whole way through my career.
Wow. Duncan, there's a lot of people working in the industry for 30 years like you are, have a lot of good mentor, coach, and peers, but not getting to the executive, boardroom, right? So if you rewind your time and, your career, what would be, the success factor that that contributes to your success? If you can, share with us.
Well, I think there's 2 things. One is you have to succeed in the role you're in today. If you don't succeed in the role you're in today, then you won't get considered for the next role. So, I know it sounds really simple, but it's actually really important. Many people say, well, what I want is that role up there. But they forget it's competitive. And essentially, as you go up, you've got to be in the top 10%, because only 1 in 10 is going to get to the next level.
Yep.
And lower down, it might be 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, but the higher you get, there's just less roles.
Yep.
So therefore, you've got to be in that top 10% of performers. So you have to perform in the current role. I think the second thing is you have to like what you do. And if you like what you do and you're passionate about it, then you can find people who can give you feedback around, well, what do I need to do differently? And it's not one person, you get multiple feedbacks. So then how to help that team succeed and deliver the best results possible. And then have an eye on someone who's saying, well, what do you do next? So one of my big career changes, I was actually running a digital sales team. So I had 270 inside sales people. And my boss came up to me and said, I want you to come and run our enterprise large deals team. So it was with 30 people, not 270. it was to run the largest deals that were, $100 million instead of, $10,000. So completely different. I said, "Are you serious? I mean, I've never done this before. Why would you choose me?" And he said, "Well, because you've got attention to detail. You've got these things. You're the best performer in this area, and I think this is actually the right area." And I trusted him. And it turned out, it actually really suited what I was good at. And I built that team up and then built a reputation around it, which then led to new things. But you have to be good at what you are, and then you need people who can say, "Look, this is what you need to go and do." So I went from running small deals to running mega deals. The largest deal was $470 million.
So $500 million deal.
For a single contract signed with a customer. And that was a 2.5-year sales journey, but completely different from trying to do 10,000 transactions with inside salespeople.
Wow.
Now, the other thing I think that helped me is I'm very strong on numbers.
Wow. So thanks to the good math background.
And you sort of, certainly for senior leadership roles, you actually need both attention to detail. So you need a really good focus on numbers and detail and the specifics. And you need a balance of understanding and connecting with people. And you need a view of the bigger picture of where are you trying to get to, because you need to be able to give people a vision. So it's interesting, people sometimes describe senior leaders as they have to be a big picture and charismatic and visionary. Actually, the key, I think, in senior leaders is you need to be balanced. You actually need a combination. And you're not an expert in anything, but you need to have breadth and you need to have a mix that has all those elements in it.
Wow. You led an organization of 3,500 people, if I remember the number correctly, and that's a huge number of employees that under your management. How could you make the best out of your people? How can you connect with them, Duncan?
I was pretty full. I had a role earlier and I had about 600 or 700 people. That was in a massive change zone. And what became evident is you can't lead 700 people. I don't care how good you are. You physically don't have enough time.
Yep.
And so in that environment, when I was, massive change program on this organisation, I was actually leading IBM's software business for Australia and New Zealand. The thing I found was I actually ran this offsite and brought all the leadership together and some other key people. And we just did a thing with Post-it notes and said, so in this change program, what do you think, what are the top 3 things you think we're trying to achieve? Now, out of that exercise, there were, let's say, 30 people in the room. There were 30 opinions. And so you quickly realise that if you're trying to lead a team of 700 and the top 30 all have a different opinion around what you're trying to do, it's never going to work. It's like herding cats. It's impossible.
Yep.
And so alignment of a leadership team becomes really, really important. So making sure they understand what we're trying to go for, you have a consistent, connection around these are the key things that are important, and then working to align that team. And in some cases, you end up having to change some of the leadership team because they either won't align or can't align to get to that.
Yep.
And so if you don't have your leaders aligned, you've got no chance of getting the rest of the organisation aligned.
Yep, absolutely.
It's sort of, it's that the most precious commodity as a senior leader is your time. You literally, you can never do it all.
Yep.
There's no physical way of doing everything.
So get alignment from the leadership team, and then and then make sure that each of us have the same objective, goals, and directions, and then and that's the way that you led the organization of 3,500 people.
Yeah, and and so that connection viewpoint of making sure you had alignment,
Mm.
I would talk to my direct reports sometimes 3 or 4 times a day.
Mm.
So that sort of constant interaction, not in a pressure environment, but more around you can only make good decisions if you know what's going on.
Yep. Mm.
And you need a relationship and an engagement such that people trust you. It's a really, really important thing. And the more they trust you, the more you know. And the more you know, the more you get more information and the likely you are to make better decisions.
Yep. And the more you can help your pupil also when they trust and they share more information with you, right?
Yeah.
Well, and if we rewind and your 30 plus years in the IT world, right, and experience, there's a lot of things that you could write about. You could write about leadership, you could write about sales, you could write about leading teams, you could write about people management, a lot of things, right? And then you wrote a book about accelerating women, and I would like to talk about that now. Okay, so since when you have an idea of want to leave a legacy behind by writing a book, Duncan?
So I think there was the big change point for me was I was actually in Bangalore
Mm.
doing a women in technology session. So I'd sponsored obviously a number of, I mentored women consistently over the last 15 to 20 years. I'd had lots of engagement, but I can still remember I went to Bangalore. There was like 250 women in the room, and it was an open forum, so they were asking questions. Now, the great thing about women in India is they ask a lot of questions, and they're not shy. They ask exactly what's on their mind. And so I had this 90 minutes on stage, and I came off stage actually feeling uncomfortable that we were letting them down, that we were missing the point. And so I had a red-eye flight from Bangalore back to Singapore, and at 2:30 in the morning, I just couldn't sleep. And I came up with this idea that said, there's more we can do, and maybe there is something we can do. And the idea is now called TARA as a program, which was to help women return to work. And what I could see was if I could help women with enablement, particularly because the IT industry moves so fast, we could help them return to work. Now, as it turned out, there's quite a bit of learning. So this is 4 years ago now. What we found was there was actually bigger issues around confidence than there is in actually people losing skills. They don't lose skills.
Skills,
and
yeah.
It's 50% of the population. So, I mean, 50-50.
Yep. One man, one woman.
Not hard to think, but and so if we're failing on enabling them to come back in the workforce and there's a confidence issue, what could we do? So we set up this program called TARA. I had a great CEO, Pat Gelsinger, who's now the CEO of Intel globally, who gave us lots of good advice and coaching along the way and actually pushed me to be bolder. So that program we launched to provide free enablement to help women return to work. And I guess, having been a supporter of it, creator of it, it was my idea on a plane at 2:30 in the morning. Today, we've helped more than 4,000 women return to the IT workforce in India. We have sponsorship from 3 state governments in India as well. And there are over 18,000 women in the program who currently we're helping. It's driven like 50 million social media hits just in India. And we've extended that program now to a number of other countries across Asia Pacific. Because what we realised was connecting the women together, giving them access to enablement, allowing them to regain their confidence has been, we've changed their lives. So, I mean, we actually got 50 of them to tell their stories. And, I mean, I can't get past story 3 before you're crying, just reading the impact you've made on these women's lives.
Wow.
But that created a sort of, we can do more, and there's some things I know we were doing that I then decided to try and write down and provide, I guess, a help guide for managers and leaders on how to do more on gender diversity. Most leaders I see actually have good intent now. What's changed in the last 10 years? The intent's there. People want to improve gender diversity.
Yep.
They're still stuck on how. What do I change? How do I do it? What works? What doesn't work? So I decided to write that down.
and I'm in the reverse situation, because we work in the industry for human resource, right? So in the management ballroom for my countries, I'm the only man in the room versus
Correct.
So I hope that my boss up there will be able to write a book about gender diversity, for male in my situation. However, just kidding. Yes, I agree with you that leaders and managers are now more serious and have a more good intentions to build up like gender diversity in the workforce. But like you say in the book, they're struggling finding the ways that they can do it correctly and can do it scale it up also. And
So
yeah.
So if you think about that loop, I mean, I guess the way I ended up structuring the book is, so what do I change as a leader? What do I personally do differently? Because there are some things you have to change around the way you operate. And then what do you do with the team that work for you? What do you do with the organisation? And then what do you do out into the community? And it turns out what we did with Tara and the community taught us some valuable lessons about confidence that came back and actually changed what I personally did as a leader.
So you do it the reverse way first. Tara is a community project, but then the result of that came back, echo back, and then changed the way that you lead yourself too.
Yeah. Particularly on how you instill confidence, how you engage. I mean, even simple things like if you ask a woman around, so what's wrong? That direct confrontation rarely works. They say, I'm fine. That's okay. I'll be all right in a little while. So you get all these answers that deflect, but you miss gaining that real interaction.
I see.
Whereas if you wait and you observe, then sometimes you observe and then tell a story. It's interesting because I've seen other people in this part of the organisation having these issues, and that story can then allow the woman to actually tell you more information. And once they start telling you more information, you get on this process where you're in a trusted zone with them. And it's truly amazing. There's just a whole different level. And so, I mean, I thank the women who engaged from Tara because it helped teach me some different things. And I thought I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But I learned more around, and I still make mistakes. But it's sort of recognising them. And one of the women in my team, Uma, I made this mistake, and she came and told me. When you did this, I felt like this. And it was like, I didn't even realise.
Wow.
And that then sort of goes, and I didn't make the same mistake again.
Wow.
In a whole different zone.
Wow. That is example of psychology environment that you build so that the people can come to you directly and share how they feel, right? It's not easy to do that. So that is a culture that build up from there. And building a culture is not easy. How can leaders and managers help to build a culture, that can promote that, Duncan?
Well, and this is where, I mean, so there's some things you need to change about yourself. I mean, how you listen is actually one of the really important things. And when I mean listening, and there's a lot of research around active listening, but actually listening for what's not being said, as well as what's being said. Not asking confrontational questions, sometimes telling stories that allow things to come out and just give it time. Because sometimes it just takes time, and you need to allow it to come out when the woman's ready to tell you in the right format. Whereas most men, and I'm an engineer, I like fixing things. And so the tendency is, I want to fix it now. So what's the problem? Tell me what I need to do and I'll go and fix it. And actually it's not that simple. And so you have to sort of dial that back and say, okay, so what's the environment that will work? And you'll be surprised. So it's just being much more conscious or mindful around it's a relationship and it's an engagement, and it's those relationships and teams that actually in the end consistently succeed. It's much bigger than the individual. So the hard bit is, in a lot of cases, you're taking one step forward and one step back because you're not consistent about it.
I got it. Yep. That's what we saw in a lot of organizations. Is what they do is checklist. So like a diversity checklist, inclusion checklist, belonging checklist, and stuff like that to make sure that they already complete their task. But indeed, the foundation is not built properly. So like if you're an engineer person and you want to fix issue, right? And like you put on the book, the scale up of this in an organization is what struggle in leaders and managers, right? How do we put like a structure of management so that we can measure the performance of gender equality, gender diversity in organizations?
So, and this is where you see people take actions. Some of them are good. They're genuinely, the intent is the right direction. So we're going to make sure in every hiring there's at least a woman on the short list, and we're going to try and hire 33% of women, which is good. Good intent, right direction. And in IT, when low 20s is the usual percentage, then 33% is good. However, you need to think broader than that. And so the first thing is what's happening with promotions, what's happening with hiring, and what's happening with attrition. Because you think of it as a leaking bucket. If you're putting them in the top and they're leaking out the bottom, it won't change. And the leak out the bottom says you have to create an environment that's better than them going somewhere else, that they don't want to leave. Because if you slow down attrition, because you've got a better environment, you've got a lot stronger loyalty, and then as you hire, you'll find it actually gets easier to hire because there's more references that you're a good employer for women. You have to connect that. The other thing is, though, as a leader, you've got to put that management discipline in place. So I would run a quarterly business review on gender diversity for 30 minutes every quarter with every managing director.
Wow.
Now, it's just 30 minutes, and and this is where you get leaders in your team. I had one who turned up 50 PowerPoint charts telling me how great a job they were doing. So they would just present all these charts and then the time would run out and nothing would change. So I ended up putting a very fixed format that used, HR systems. What's the data from the HR system? Hiring, promotion, attrition. So what's the actual data? Not what you think it should be or what it's going to be. What does it actually say?
Yep.
What does the hiring funnel look like from the top to the bottom? We would look at the data and then just 3 charts. What are the actions? What are your top 3 actions you're doing for hiring? What are your top 3 actions you're doing for attrition? And what are your top 3 actions for the environment? The last piece is, what other great ideas have you got because there's just some fantastic programs and ideas that come out of your team that you as a leader take that idea and then you share it across the rest of the team. But you have to put the discipline in place, particularly when you're leading an organisation. So the average organisation moves about 0.5% a year.
0.5% a year.
0.5%.
Wow.
Which is really depressing. If you're at 25 and 0.5% a year, that's 50 years before you're going to get to 50.
Yep. Wow.
Which means every woman in your organisation will have retired or passed away by that stage.
Wow. So how can we accelerate
the good leaders? You can see in that management, when you put in that management system, the good leaders can move at 6.5% in a year.
Wow.
That means you could get to gender equality in 4 years. That's really exciting.
Yep.
Now, will it get to 4 years? Will it be 4 years for everyone? No. But I genuinely think we're in a time where the intent's there, that the next 10 years, we could actually see some big jumps in gender diversity.
Wow.
And the research is really consistent around diversity and inclusivity make a massive difference on performance. The research on that, there's so many sources on it. So this is half the population. So, it's your greatest talent source you'll ever get.
Wow. Duncan, thanks for leading that gender diversity agenda for a long time, and I think that it will be very helpful for women, and under the programs that you and the people out there are doing to make sure that they get a chance to be sitting at the table and have equal opportunity at every hiring, every promotion, and things like that. And it makes an organization even healthier and a competition even stronger. And at the same time, it makes the decision that companies make more thoughtful. Because sometimes we men decision you combine with women decision will be a lot more like thoughtful. Because sometimes we don't see what the woman can be seeing, right? Yep.
Well, and that's where diversity and the power of diversity really does make a difference, because you don't always see it. We all have our individual biases and backgrounds, but having diversity in the team means you have more views and you're more likely to come to a better decision. And so, from that perspective, huge opportunity to improve. And I am genuinely seeing more HR leaders now starting to look for help. So thank you for hosting me, but this is part of, I guess, how do you get a message out to more HR leaders that says, there are opportunities for people to do things differently. And I'm one source of trying to help people on how they might improve their gender diversity.
Yep.
And it works. I can genuinely tell you it works.
Yep. It works because you have a system of measuring it, right? So it's not just a agenda objective without a system to measure. So now you have a measure the 3 key points of the recruitment rate, the turnover rate, and the ideas that have been deployed. Those 3 things we've been and then consistently measuring it quarter by quarter, we make a discipline for all the people behind it. Believe that leadership up there actually, take it serious. So everybody needs to take it serious, and that create the success of the program that you brought at what you do, Duncan. For the book, how long did it? Earlier that you said it's not easy, right? So how long did it take you to write and publish it?
It probably took 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
But to write, and then basically another year to get it published. I was fortunate. There aren't, as you pointed out at the start, there are not many senior executives that actually manage to finish a book. Because it's just hard. It's just a lot of time and effort. For me, it used to take me about 4 hours to do 1,000 words.
And how do you manage time for that?
And the book's 73,000 words.
73,000 words.
So that's 4 hours for a first draft. And then you end up rewriting it, rearranging it, so you multiply it. I was fortunate. We went and presented the idea to Penguin, and they agreed to publish it because there wasn't many senior executives, writing books around gender diversity, having lived through it. But it was a lot of Sundays sitting there. I worked 70 plus hours a week and then add that on top. So
how do you schedule it?
No easy way to do it.
How do you schedule time to write? In your busy schedule already, Duncan.
I had an exceptional assistant that kept me busy through the week, and she maximised my productivity, and we worked very closely, so she knew where to prioritise for me. And then you just got to set aside time. There's no easy way of doing it. It's a very solitary pursuit to sit down and because you've got to. It's like everything else. You've got to focus on it, and it's 100% of your attention. And then you've got 3 rounds of editing as well, and it changes structure like 5 or 10 times over because you're creating something. You're creating like a work of art, I guess.
Yep. And this work of art will last forever now. See, it's a legacy they left behind. Sorry, Duncan. Hey, Duncan, I have a last question for 2 questions. The first one is my wife and I actually in the quest of helping people to increase their ability to think. Okay, because both of us believe that people around us now, the ability to think is declining, not increasing. So every time we'll be able to see experts, the people who are successful, people who do a lot of thinking at work, and we would like to ask this question. So Duncan, how do you foster the thinking, to grow the thinking ability within you?
So I think, firstly, obviously, I'm incredibly grateful to my parents who encouraged me to keep learning from a very early age. So that thirst for keep learning certainly made a difference. I think one of the biggest things, though, for thinking and actually for people to be bold with confidence, it was actually at the time a difficult career point where I didn't get promoted for a number of years. And it turns out my boss had held me back because he didn't think I had the right abilities and didn't tell me. And didn't tell me for more than 2 years that he was holding me back. And then when he eventually, on his last day in the role, he told me, by the way, I've been holding you back. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me? And I actually went back to him a number of years later and said thank you, because what it did was in all of this, there's a piece in the back of your head. It's like an inner voice that holds you back. And so you don't trust yourself. And so what he did was actually he broke that. So I stopped, trying to pretend to do things. I said, I came out of that experience and said, I'm going to do the best I can with the skills I have.
Mm.
And if that isn't good enough, then someone will fire me.
Mm. And
And I learned much faster. So that piece around doing the best you can and keep learning is really, really important, because that forces you that self-improvement. One of the things I really like about working with women is they have a really strong inner voice mechanism. They are extremely critical of themselves, much more than any leader ever is. And so, but that also means they improve fast. But there's a balance between that inner voice stopping you doing stuff, learning. So I think the key for over the longer term is, be comfortable in yourself, have that thirst for learning, and just keep trying things.
Just keep trying things. Yep.
Yeah, because I can tell you on the TARA program that we talked about before, there's no way in my wildest dreams we would have ever thought we would help 4,000 women back into the workforce. Wow. It was never a dream. It happened, and it's still happening today. But, if we helped 100 women, I would have been ecstatic. Wow. And, but we tried something and we kept learning and we kept adjusting and, how to find women who wanted to return to work. And that thirst for trying to find the right formula, and it's never perfect. So but you keep trying and, yep. And you keep moving. That's the critical nature of it.
Yep. Thanks for sharing that. So learning, keep doing, keep trying, and through errors and success, then we find a way to keep improving every time, right?
Exactly.
Yep. And Duncan, the last question I would like to ask you is this. We've been understand, you're good at math and you're good young, and then you went into the engineering career and, I study, and then you go into the IT for 30 years. You wrote a book. So what's next? Is there anything that exciting that you are doing that you'd like to share with me and the audience in advance so that we can celebrate now with you?
So, today I'm essentially giving back around what I can do to help organisations around gender equality. I've been fortunate. I'm doing a reasonable amount of public speaking where organisations are inviting me in to talk about my experiences. And I'm looking for them to invest with their managers and leaders we won't get them all, but if we get some of them to then read and understand, we'll lift the average skill level of how managers and leaders, manage gender diversity. Because it's at that point where there's enough intent, we actually need the skill level to come up a level, and we need it on a broader basis.
Yep.
And so, that's what I'm doing. I'm not working now, no longer working full time. I'm actually spending some time with family, which, when I was travelling 200 days a year, that was a little difficult. So, because, senior executive roles are extremely demanding, and I think we worked out I'd spent 4,500 days away from home in over a, nearly 20-year period. Wow. So that's, senior roles are highly demanding. So, I'm getting to spend some time with my family and getting to do some public speaking and around what I'm passionate about.
Wow. See, now, you have a good time with your family, you have a phenomenal career journey, and you're still going out there to help leaders and managers to scale up their ability to bring gender diversity and equality into the workforce. So we really admire that, and we wish you all the best. We wish you continue to introduce more of that to the world and help building organization culture a lot more equal to everybody. Okay, equal opportunity for everybody. So Duncan, the next time, since you've been to my country, it has been 3 years already. The next time you should, come to our country sometime soon. So if you and your family travel here, please let me and Vivian know. So we will be so happy to take you guys around town. Okay.
I'd be delighted to. So, but no, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining today. We see you soon.
Okay.
Yes.
So I can send you a couple of links because I've actually just put up a website.
Sure.
On accelerating women, and that's connected. There's a YouTube channel with 9 videos already up as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, happy to support. Obviously, it'll come out on social media somehow and through on it.
Yep. Thank you very much. Share with me, and then I'll be so happy to share with our community also. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye for now.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye bye.